I'm Vana from TBR Trio, and in this episode of Tales in Focus, we are at
Barnes & Noble
in Fairfax, Virginia. This is our first interview at Barnes & Noble. Please keep in mind that the store is open, and you might see some book shoppers and things behind me, so just keep that in mind. There might be some noise. And without further ado, today we are going to be sitting down with Scott Frost. He is a gothic, horror, and dark sci-fi author who creates action-packed journeys. Before we dive in, please keep in mind that the books we'll be discussing contain mature and potentially triggering themes. We encourage our viewers to always read the content warnings in the books before viewing and or listening. Last but not least, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe so you don't miss any of our upcoming author interviews. It really does help us a lot, and it's free. Now, please join me in welcoming Scott. Thank you
Vana.
so much for being here today.
I really appreciate you having me, Vana. Thank
Are
you so
you
much.
ready?
I am ready. A little nervous, but I'm ready. Yeah.
Oh, you're going to have so much fun. This is going to be great. Yes.
Yeah.
So before we dive into the nitty gritty, the heartfelt questions, I have a couple icebreakers for you.
Okay.
If you could wallpaper one room in your house with a single movie poster or a soundtrack cover, what would it be and why?
Ooh.
You're going to be seeing this photo a lot.
Yeah. So I have actually over 3,000 soundtracks on CD. So that's actually very hard for me to choose one. But if I had to go with a movie poster, it would probably be Jaws 2 with the sunset. There's a poster of Jaws 2 that's got the sunset, and it's there's the ocean. You see the fin coming out of the water, and it says, "Just when you thought it was safe to go back in the water." Like that. I saw that when I was a kid, and it just like really jumped out at you. So it's like a red sunset. It looks beautiful. So that's probably the one I'd go with.
That sounds comforting, right?
Sure.
Dark. Yeah, the sun part sounds comforting. The fin, not so much, but
that's right.
Sure, love that. All right, you get to bring one fictional character from any book or movie to coffee. Who are you picking, and what is the first thing you would ask them?
That's going to be Indiana Jones. And
okay.
I'm going to ask him, what relic are we going after next? Like, it's going to be like, let's go on an adventure together.
You're like, can I join you?
Yeah,
on that?
like bring me
Will
along.
he share the profits with you?
It doesn't matter. I just want to go on like
you just
the
want
ride.
to experience
I want the ride.
All right,
like,
all right.
So,
so you're all about it's the journey, not the destination. All right, very good. All right, last question here. What is the weirdest or most unexpected, inspiring place you found a story idea? It could be like a grocery store, a museum, in the bathroom.
So it might be a little cliche, but one of the short stories in the Maniac Dreams was a submission to Cohesion Press. They had a call for submissions, and I was in a Starbucks waiting for my son's baseball practice to end, and I saw this teenage girl and boy at this table. They were just making out, like literally in the middle of the Starbucks, and I had my laptop, and I just watched them, and they were just like really kissing and going at it and grinding into it. And I thought, wow, this is pretty bold to do this in front. But I thought to myself, what if this was like a zombie apocalypse? And what if like they were super in love and he was turning into a zombie while he was kissing her, and then he just bit off her face? And
oh my God.
I literally started this zombie short story in the Maniac Dreams with a makeshift wedding during the zombie apocalypse, where the boyfriend is turning into a zombie while they're actually doing their vows. And then he bites, they kiss, the priest says, "You may kiss the bride." He kisses her and he bites her lips off. So that was kind of the weirdest place I ever was like, wow, that's an amazing idea. So, and I ran with it. So it was a lot of fun.
I don't think that's cliche at all. I think that's very unique.
Yeah.
And also slightly horrifying.
That's
now
right.
I will make sure I'm nowhere near Starbucks. Maybe I'll find a new place to get my coffee from. No, that's awesome. All right, cool. So let's talk a little bit about some general writing and inspiration and your journey here. So how did you know you wanted to be an author? Walk us through what that day or that time was like for you.
Yeah, so as far back as I can remember, all the way back to elementary school, I was always writing stories and was fascinated with like Egyptian mythology and civilization in general. And a lot of classes we took really tried to inspire creative writing. So I mean, I can just think back to like 3rd, 4th grade where we had assignments where it was like, go create a story. We'd read books a lot. there's a book, Bridge to Terabithia. You probably know
That's
that
one
story.
of my favorite books growing
Yeah,
up.
but that's a traumatic story for
Yeah.
like, I think we were like fourth graders. And you read Bridge to Terabithia, and it's like, I think Leslie dies, in the story. And it's like, whoa, what's going on here?
Spoiler alert.
Yeah,
Sorry,
spoiler
guys.
alert. Sorry about that. But to really experience that and be able to create and craft my own stories along the way was really, really inspired me. And so I did that throughout growing up. Even in high school, I took creative writing. The assignment would be go write 200 words tonight and bring in a short story tomorrow. I'd write 2,000 words.
Wow.
And so it was just cranking out, my imagination was constantly going. And in college, I took creative writing as well, and wrote some pretty dark horror stories that people were freaked out about in class. And the professor was like, dude, you are a great writer. Like, you're telling cool stories, keep at it. Life gets in the way, right? You get married, you have kids. I'm in my 50s now. And then, I picked it back up, when I was in my late 40s, and I was like, wow, I've got a good idea for a story. Let me see if I can craft this and really, really put a novel out there, do something like that's whole and complete.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
So you basically like love to write, like it was like a natural feeling for you.
Yeah, it's always been inherent. Now, we'll talk about the craft of writing. It's a completely different game. And so
having the passion is one thing.
That's right. Being able to do it is totally different. So yeah, I think for myself, I love telling stories. I love movies. My wife and I watch probably 4 or 5 movies a week.
That's sweet.
Love storytelling. And one thing I do with movies is I think about, how would I do things differently? What would I have done, right? Like, how would I have changed that ending to maybe have a little bit more cosmic wonder to the story?
So you're like that movie watcher that's like,
yeah,
I could have done this slightly better.
Well, better, or maybe
add my own twist to it.
Yeah. I mean, filmmaking, right? They have constraints. But I love the art of storytelling.
Yes, that's awesome. Well, having the passion is the biggest part of it, right? And then the crafting of it, like you said, it builds with skills and with time and with experience. So that's having the passion is a really big foundation to have.
Absolutely.
So what is your writing style like? Do you see yourself outlining books first, or are you kind of just like, we'll figure it out when we get there?
So are you a planner or are you a pantser, right? That's the author question.
Yeah, that is the general question.
And so I will say I used to be a pantser, and I would just sit down and write and go, like Starbucks, right? But I got into planning with Empyreax, and I've never looked back ever since I've become a planner. So every story I do now is planned from beginning to end, and then it becomes an exercise of filling in, because I've learned that you have to really focus on what story you want to tell and where you want to take it, rather than just letting the characters try and figure out. That works for some authors, but for me, I really like the planning part up front, because to me, that's what I'm trying to achieve. I want to make sure that the objectives I'm setting are coming through in that plan and strategy, rather than making it up as I go. So,
well, you said you were a pantser before. So was there a specific moment that you were like, this is not really working out for me anymore?
Yeah, it was. I kept getting stuck in the middle of the stories, right? I would come up with these great beginnings. I would have these amazing endings, but then the middle was just like, what's going on? And I would just sit and I would flounder and flounder. And then I decided, let me start thinking about structuring time sequences. Where are the characters at? Where am I trying to take them? Where are they going? And what are the possibilities that we could do that there? And then plotting that out, all of a sudden it was like, wow, plotting the middle makes it so much easier to actually write the story as you go. So I think my outline for Empyreax was 12,000 words.
Wow.
Which is huge.
Yeah.
That's almost like a novella size. But I had every single detail planned out along the way. So,
very nice. So when you were outlining Empyreax, what came first for you? Was it the characters or was it the plot? Or maybe both?
That's an interesting question. So I bought a cabin in 2018, and I was renovating it, and I was going up there a lot. And my buddy was like, you go up to your cabin an awful lot, dude. Like, what are you hiding up there? And I kind of thought to myself, I was like, what if I was hiding something up there? And what if it was a woman? And this story started to formulate. And so I think for me, Empyreax is more plot driven first versus character driven. But then as I started creating the characters, it was, okay, what types of characters do I want in this world to be there? So I think for me, I'm very plot driven. And then I drop the characters in to put them through hell and have them go through these adventures to get to the ultimate objective of what I'm trying to achieve. So yeah.
I feel like you, like any kind of prompt, it's like it triggers something, like how you said with the Starbucks and now you said with the cabin. I feel like you just get someone like gives you a little like a topic, and then you're like, I can create a whole story around this.
My imagination it's just going constantly.
That is so fascinating how like you can make something out of just like a word.
Yeah.
That is so interesting. Wow.
In fact, it's funny you mentioned that. So I was taking some writing courses, and I was joking with a friend of mine. I was like, let's write a 30-word love scene. And so
30 words.
A 30-word love scene. And so we started to get creative around writing these really compact love scenes that would evoke, some sort of response or emotion. And so I had a couple people writing out these. So I like to write very compact, and I like keeping things simple, but with enough prompts that the reader can fill in the gaps. I know there's a lot of writers that want to describe everything in detail and make sure it's perfect and it's exact. And I've pulled away from that because I want the readers to really understand, build the story in their mind, and experience it the way they want to experience, rather than me forcing that onto them.
You want to leave it up to like interpretation.
Exactly.
And because I know sometimes, and we'll talk about this a little later, like the world building and adding too much information at once is a little overwhelming to the reader. We kind of lose track of what the plot is and like what the storyline that we're supposed to follow is.
It's the What About Bob, right? It's exposition and it's dumping information to the reader, and it slows things down and it pulls them out of the story, and we got to keep them going. So,
absolutely. All right. What would you say is your favorite part of the writing process? Is it the outlining, or is there maybe editing, or even release day that's your favorite?
Release date's always fun. But it's also anticlimactic because it's sort of like you've done all this hard work to get to that point, and then you're sort of like, oh, okay, it's out in the world now, right? Like, what happens next? So I think for me, it's really the planning and the ideation and the brainstorming. I have a Kindle Scribe that I'm doodling on constantly. And I love that because it's all in digital format. I used to do it all on paper. I mean, I have probably a stack of paper for this book that is huge. But I do everything now on the Kindle Scribe. So it's just thinking and just creating. So I love that ideation and brainstorming is probably my favorite part.
Yeah, and like we were saying, I feel like you get so many ideas just with like one simple prompt. I feel like that's a good like writing exercise. Do you do that? Like,
I do prompting all the time. I have an accountability partner, and so she and I will give each other prompts just to kind of keep our juices, flowing on that. And then what happens is, right, they call it a trunk. Authors have a trunk where they put old stories, they put ideas, and the thing is you go to that trunk when you're writing other stories. And so there's elements from Empyreax that I was like, it doesn't quite fit, but boom, they've made it into, the Maniac Dreams, or, in future books, it's like, I'm going to revisit that idea. So, I always tell authors, never delete anything. Like, just throw it in the trunk, keep it there, because probably someday you're going to be like, oh, that's why 3 years ago I thought about that, because now it's going to fit in this other story I've got.
So you have a lot of, you say you're always prompting to keep your juices flowing. Have you ever experienced writer's block?
Oh, of course.
So how would you overcome it for somebody that is so, like, the mind is always running?
Yeah, so I did this, and I got stuck at one time where I was like really trying to figure out this one area of the story. And I had read, somebody said, try dictation. And so I thought, that's an interesting idea. And what I did is I fired up a microphone and I just started talking about the scene and where I was trying to take it and what I was trying to do and what I was stuck with. And as I talked through it, the computer was dictating everything, through Microsoft Word. I think it's built in. And as I'm hearing myself talking about what I'm stuck on, I think my brain just inherently started triggering new ideas, new thoughts, and new words to just start throwing out there.
So talking it through helped.
Talking
like
it through helps, yeah. And then also having an accountability partner. I can't recommend that enough for authors. Having somebody who you can trust, that you trust. They're not gonna critique you, right? That's a different group. But an accountability partner who is somebody you can call and say, hey, I need to chat about this scene. It's very sensitive, or it's very dark, or it's potentially an issue. can you give me your perspective on it? Or, hey, I need you to read this because I'm so excited about it. Is it good or not? And they'll read it and be like, no, it sucks. Go rework it. Or they're like, whoa, this is amazing. How are you going to work it in? So for me, it's about having the sounding board, whether it's with dictation for yourself or having an accountability partner to kind of help you get through that.
Very cool. So the accountability partner, do you like work with each other to like do like writing sprints or okay. So so it's not just like reading your work and giving you feedback type of thing. It's more than that.
And it's really about holding each other accountable and saying, in fact, her name is Cece Lee. She just got picked up by a Triad of Publishing. So
That's
whereas
awesome
I went the self-publishing route, she went and queried, and I've read her whole book. I mean, I think it's a great book. It's young adult romance. It's a very feel-good story and coming of age, and it's written from a place of passion for her. I hope it gets it's on submission right now. I hope it gets picked up because it's a great story.
Oh, fingers crossed. We're manifesting it for her. That's awesome.
But she and I set deadlines for each other, and so it's sort of like, okay, we have to be done with our book by August, and then what happens if you don't make it? We set sort of like penalties if we don't make it. But I've never met her in person, by the way. We met through a writing group.
Very cool.
Yeah, but we hit it off, and I write sci-fi horror, and she writes young adult romance. So I think the difference in the genres is very healthy because I'll give her new ways to think about a scene, and then she gives me different perspectives on how to think about things as well.
Yeah, I think that's awesome that you guys come from different genres because you guys know your genre, but you want to make sure it's appealing to outsiders that don't really read your genre. So you want to make sure, okay, will it appeal to a romance reader, or would a romance book appeal to a sci-fi reader? So that's awesome. You guys have a good partnership.
Oh, it's fantastic. Yeah, I gave her in the book. I gave her a huge shout out as well.
Great.
Acknowledgements.
Awesome, love it. All right. Well, you were saying you work on it's like gothic horror, dark sci-fi. So tell us a little bit about how you knew that you wanted to go into this. You were kind of talking about your early writing days, but
yeah, I think so. I've always been drawn into horror because it evokes very strong emotions.
Yes, it does.
Yeah,
very scary emotions.
Yeah, and I think for me, a lot of times like horror and sci-fi, a lot of movies are, the human is actually the human person is actually the bad guy, right? The human spirit is really the dark force that exists. And so I think a lot of those stories evoke that, and it makes you sort of self-reflect on what is being a good human, what does that really mean at the end of the day. So I think horror does a good job of reflecting humanity back on itself. And then there's the slashers that just you get the jump scares, and
that's the fun part. Yeah.
And I honestly, my best friend Jeff Radley, we grew up together, my brother and I and Jeff, making movies. And so for us, it was we grew up with like Jason Voorhees and Michael Myers and Freddy Krueger, and so we would emulate a lot of it because we grew up in the 80s, right? So those were the popular films at the time. So we would emulate those, and so Jeff is actually a Hollywood screenwriter now.
Oh wow!
And if you saw Halloween 2018, which was the reboot, he's the writer. So it was very weird to go into the movie theater and the credits are playing at the beginning of the Halloween, and there it is, written by Jeff Radley.
You're like, oh my god, I know him.
And knowing that we grew up together making parodies of the Halloween movies, right? And it was funny. There's a scene where one of the characters gets killed, and there's like a dummy where the head gets crushed. He actually mailed that to me, so I've got this prop from the Halloween movie.
Did you know he was?
I didn't know he was. I just got this box one day.
So when you opened it, what?
I was like, whoa, this is amazing! And it's like the full prosthetic head, and it had some fake blood still in it. It was.
See, if I got that, I would have been like, what? Like I would have no words, but I'm sure you probably were like, oh my god, this is so cool.
Oh, it was awesome. In fact, I sent him my book. He loved it, and he gave it to Danny McBride, the actor, and David Gordon Green, who's the director. So they all work together in Hollywood movies. And
very cool.
Very cool.
Very cool. So you were talking about your favorite actors, but your favorite authors. Some of them are Richard Matheson.
Richard Matheson, yep.
Okay,
yep.
I apologize for saying
That's
that
okay.
incorrectly. Dan O'Bannon and Clive Barker.
Yeah.
So what about these writers influence your writing style?
So I think, a lot of people don't know like Dan O'Bannon or Richard Matheson. And Richard Matheson wrote I Am Legend, which is it's a huge book, and it was hugely influential on the vampire genre. So it's one of the first books to really figure out, like, okay, this is what vampires are about. This is how they're motivated. So, a lot of the vampire movies that exist go back to Richard Matheson's work on I Am Legend, but he's written so many screenplays and television shows. He wrote a lot of Hammer horror films that starred Vincent Price. He wrote Kolchak the Night Stalker, a 70s comedy thriller murder mystery series. So a lot of the work he did is very action oriented, very thriller-esque, very mystery. Dan O'Bannon wrote Alien. He wrote Life Force. He wrote Total Recall. So, these guys are behind the scenes on these iconic films, and you just think about the vast imagination that they have, and how did they come up with this stuff? Like it's I'm always fascinated by that. And then Clive Barker, I'm super happy about that. In fact, I brought this is an original artwork by Clive
that is so cool.
that I bought several years ago, and there's a story about this. I had been looking at a archive company that sells Clive's original artwork. He does like oil paintings and stuff. And I saw this picture and I was like, wow, it's really
very cool.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like it's just a sketch, right? It's got his autograph and everything.
Yeah.
And so I thought, well, it's a little expensive. I don't want to spend the money on that. And in 2022, I was diagnosed with cancer. And while I was going through chemo, I did 5.5 months of chemo, and if you've gone through chemo, it messes with your body. Yeah. But I had a dream about this drawing one night, and I'm getting chills now thinking about this. And in the dream, this picture was in my house, and it was alive, and it was terrifying. It was creating like some horror for me in this dream.
Wow.
So I woke up, and I was like, wow, that's crazy. And I went to the website and it was still available. I literally bought it at like 3 a.m.
It was a sign.
And it was like a sign that I had to get it. So now I have this over my writing desk, and it's, for me, it's inspiration. I mean, I think it's a cool story. And I told the guy that runs the archive about the story. He's like, oh, I'm going to pass this on to Clive. He loves those kinds of things. So, kind of a fun little thing that I love Clive Barker, but his imagination is wild. I mean, the stories he's created and the things that he's produced over the years. I mean, being a director of like the Hellraiser movies and Nightbreed, and he wrote this A Magica book. So I love the fact that he really explores like the dark side of the human mind ultimately. And so I love that. Yeah.
And that is such a cool relic to have in your house. And while you're writing, you can use it for inspiration. And it's also from a really hard time in your life.
Yeah.
And it's such a beautiful souvenir to have and to use and to be inspired by. So that's awesome.
I love it.
Yeah. Okay. So in your opinion, you write sci-fi, you write horror. What makes you think readers want to read sci-fi and horror?
I mean, I think it's escape, right? Like especially sci-fi is, you see ebbs and tides in sci-fi. And I think that, when people are looking for hope, they maybe feel like things are a little dystopian. They go to sci-fi to escape. And I think it's also what's possible, in the future. And so we don't know the future.
Yeah.
And I think we always want to hope that the near future is more advanced than it really is. But I mean, we move so slow as a civilization.
Yeah.
So, you kind of look at movies back in the 70s and 80s. It's like, oh, it's 2019 Blade Runner, and it's like this dystopian robotic world, and here we are in 2025, and we're nowhere close to that, right? At the end of the day. So I think it's really about thinking about what would the future look like, where can we go?
Yeah.
And a lot of sci-fi is dark and dystopian. I mean, it's very much, there's a pessimistic view of where humanity's headed, and I think that's the case, but I also like to believe in the positive side of things. I mean, having been through cancer and everything like that, it's humanity, I think, is on a very good trajectory for the future. Yes, there's things going on in the world, but I think that people look for that kind of escape. And then horror, I think it's just more the thrill of getting the blood going.
Yeah, get that adrenaline pumping, that heart racing.
and just feeling, not, uncomfortable in your skin. Right?
Yeah.
I think that's what I love about horror. It's just, really just putting you out of your comfort zone.
That's awesome.
Because you don't feel that every day. Right?
Yeah. And I mean, there's horror movies, but I don't watch horror, so I don't really
Okay.
I don't really know the feeling of it besides me being terrified. But so what is it like reading horror? Because I'm assuming you've read a ton of horror. So what is the difference in experiencing reading it versus watching it?
So the biggest difference, and you see a lot of new writers attempt to do this. They want to try and create a jump scare in writing, and
Mhm.
you can't do that. It's
Mhm.
just not possible because you have the visual media, you've got music, you've got editing, you've got the ability to quickly trick the person.
Mhm.
Whenever a cat jumps out, I always say, "Oh, ye old cat trick," right?
Yes.
But with writing, you can't do that. And so I think the shift you have to make is building up in the reader's mind layer on top of layer on top of layer, uh, building up to something that is stark. And there's like a whoa, there's a moment there where you're like, oh wow, that there's a massive build up to this terror and horror
Mhm.
that's going on. So I think writing horror is a lot more difficult than filming horror,
Yeah.
right? Because you've got the sensory experience of music and sound that really changes things, and
Yes.
the reader doesn't have that
Mhm.
at all. So you could possibly do it with audiobooks, but I don't think that's the same thing as a
Right.
movie either. So
Right.
yeah, I think from in my mind that's kind of the difference between the two. Yeah,
Well, you still build that thrill, you still
yeah.
build that suspense in the book. So I'm sure readers still get a kick out of that
Oh
adrenaline
yeah,
experience.
yeah.
All right, one more question before we dive into your book. You published Empyreax in this year, in 2025,
Yep.
in January.
January 2nd, which is National Sci-Fi Day. So I picked that day because it's National Sci-Fi
I
Day.
did
Yeah.
not know that.
Yeah.
Very
Yeah.
clever.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's been what, like 10 months, 11 months, right? We're in November.
11 months. Yeah.
Yes. What would you say, like your journey? It hasn't been too long, but would you do anything differently?
Yeah. So as a self-published author, I think the biggest thing that you don't pay attention to in the beginning is marketing. And so I mean I'm new to all of that. And so I think that for future books, I'm planning more of a ramp up with like ARC readers and
Yeah.
like a very dedicated marketing campaign.
Mhm.
One of the things I've done recently is hired a character artist, and he's creating characters. He's like a comic book artist, and he's doing characters for each one of the characters in here. And I'm gonna be doing reels and promos with that. I'm doing it, 10 months after I publish. So I should be doing that ahead of time. And so
Right.
I think the biggest lesson I've had is just around the marketing aspect of it. But, I think the production, um, the one thing that I've done is I created a 25-page self-publishing guide for authors.
Oh yeah.
And so the URL is a bit.ly/self-pub abyss. I call it the self-publishing abyss.
Is it a free
It's free.
resource?
It's totally free.
So we can add it to the
Yeah,
description of this
perfect.
video. Yes.
Yeah, it's a Google Doc, and I think it's been viewed like 17,000 times.
That's
And
awesome.
authors have been like, "Wow, this is great. Thank you so much." Because when I went through the self-publishing process, there's a lot of websites out there, but nobody brought it all together
Yeah.
into like copyright and ISBNs and
Mhm.
Amazon versus Barnes and Noble versus audiobooks and
Yeah.
other things like that. And so there's a lot of detail that is overwhelming, and I wanted to try and simplify that
That's
and put it out there for
awesome.
free. Again,
Yeah.
I don't want to gatekeep,
Gatekeep, right?
Yeah, like
Yeah.
it's if I want to help people.
Yeah.
That's the thing. So yeah, I encourage people to check that out.
That's a wonderful
Yeah.
resource. And I know, like, as a new author, it's so hard because there's no book that's written, right?
Yeah.
It's ironic. There's no book to tell you what to do as an author.
Yeah.
But having these resources, especially from another self-published author that's experienced it and has gone through it, it's a great resource. And that's so generous of you
Yeah.
to have
Oh,
created something
yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, we'll include it in the link in the description.
I'm very big on like cosmic karma, and so
Yes.
my opinion is you get back
what you put out. Yes,
and
100%.
so I've always tried to be, helping people.
100%. Yes.
Definitely.
All right, let's dive into your book. So
Yes.
before we dive into the pages of the book, we need to talk about this cover.
Okay.
Because
Yeah.
I am absolutely blown away.
Yeah.
We were saying it earlier before the interview started that this is like, you see this in a store and you're like lured in. You're like, what is happening
Yeah.
here? So please, what is happening here? Tell us.
So so a lot of authors will make jokes about how they get so distracted thinking about covers. And it's so true. Like you start thinking about artwork and covers and it distracts you from the actual writing process. And as probably about 10% into the book, I had thought, oh, what kind of cover do I want? Like, what do I want to evoke? And I knew I wanted something that was layered. If you've ever seen the movie The Game with Michael Douglas, the opening credits are jigsaw puzzle pieces that kind of flow at the audience. And it says like the game, then it breaks into these like puzzle pieces. And I love that idea. And so originally I had sort of this image here represents a tattoo that a cult in the book has tattooed on their wrist.
Very cool.
And so I ultimately wanted the tattoo to be sort of like the grounding image of the cover. And originally it was sort of like a jigsaw piece that was flying out at the reader, looking at it. And one of my pieces of advice for authors is don't design your own cover. Hire somebody. Because I showed it to people and you show it to friends and family, like, oh yeah, that looks great. But then I thought, you know what, let me give this to a designer and see what they could do. And this was literally like the first concept he came back with. So it went from this sort of cartoony picture to this dramatic explosion.
So you knew you wanted like this part. Like I know you said the tattoo in the middle, but this was what you envisioned for the background.
So he came up with like the rock concept and everything. I had sort of like, it was more like puzzle pieces kind of flowing out, like shards of glass, think like that. And I said, just come up with something. And this was literally like the first design. And I was just blown away when he came back. And there's no AI generated stuff in here. I mean, this is all designed by him. I did some color shading and things like that in Photoshop.
This is fantastic.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and then it wraps around on the book, so it it kind of.
I'm gonna lift this really quickly.
Yeah,
but you can see here.
Yeah, it gives you that wraparound, and so I wanted to evoke a sense of cosmic wonder. That's what I love about my stories is cosmic wonder. And so I think it came out great.
It came out fantastic.
And then with like he made this mechanical looking, and so it looks like a robot. And there's like a drone that flies around in the story. His name's Poe, and a lot of readers love Poe. In fact, somebody wrote a review, and I don't spend a lot of time on reviews, but they said I can't wait to. They said I need to make sure Poe is okay in the next book, so I don't want to give away any spoilers. But I thought it was very cool how. One reader was like, "Oh, I care about this character so much. I want to know what happens next." So yeah, it was good. But I think that, he made this mechanical, and so it evokes sci-fi, right? So I wanted it to really scream like action, sci-fi, and the explosion around that.
Yeah, so, no, it's awesome. Yeah. Okay, pause. Time out. Everything. Let me get back into questions. All right. So walk us through a little bit about what Empyreax is about.
So Empyreax opens up with an old man who dies, and at the very beginning of the book, and he dies a recluse at his mountain cabin, and he's estranged from his son. And so his son, Jack, has to go to the cabin to get it ready for sale. And as he's going through the cabin, getting it ready, he finds a tunnel underneath the cabin. It's like, okay, why is there a tunnel underneath the cabin? And he goes down into the tunnel and he finds a woman. And he's like, okay, I knew Dad was crazy, but why is there a woman? And she's alive. And it turns out she's an alien entity. And so this alien entity and his dad were protecting the Empyreax device that could destroy the entire planet. And so Jack's like, okay, what's going on here? So a doomsday cult fanatic gets wind of it. He starts coming after it. There's a shadow government agency that's coming after him. And oh, by the way, there's another alien on the planet that's now wanting the Empyreax device. So all of these characters come together in like an epic adventure, and Jack has to piece together what was going on and figure out, okay, why was Dad doing this? He has to step into his father's shoes and pick up the pieces from there. So
wow, it sounds very action-packed.
There's a lot of action. Yeah.
So what can readers expect going into the story for the first time?
So the biggest challenge I had was that there's character sprawl. And I had to do a lot of backstory building with the individual characters because they all come together. And so I think going into it, you're going to be introduced to Jack, you're going to be introduced to the father, you're going to be introduced to the sheriff. There's a scientist who understands how this technology works. So I think you have to really get into the characters' mindsets, and I try to pick certain points of view of each character in each subsection of each chapter. So
so it's multiple POVs.
Multiple POVs. It's third person. It's third person limited. But I try to make sure that I ground the reader in a specific point of view, and either every chapter break. So that way you're not head hopping, and it's not really written from an omniscient perspective. I really try to get inside the heads of the characters. So you're going to go deep into each of them, and they all have their own journeys. There's a scientist who wants fame and fortune. There's a sheriff. All he wants to do is protect his town and take care of things. There's Jack, the protagonist, who he's just trying to figure out what's going on, and why did I have such a bad relationship with my father? I mean, the story is really about the father-son relationship. That's a dynamic that is very important to me. I have a son. I have two boys, so I love that whole father-son. There's times where there's good. There's times where things aren't so good. And it's sort of like that relationship between Jack and his father was very strained. And that weighs heavily on him as the story goes on. So he's pulled further and further in. He's like, why are you doing this to me, Dad? Even though his dad's not alive. It's like, why are you still doing this to me? Like, you're still, hounding me on top of things.
But he learns about his dad more as the story progresses.
Yeah. And then there's characters he meets who are like, oh yeah, your dad was amazing. He's like, what are you talking about? And he's like, no, your dad was awesome. He's like, no, he wasn't. He's like, no, he was great. So yeah.
That's awesome. The father-son dynamic is very powerful. So I love that you kind of focus on that. It is like sci-fi and there's a lot of adventure, but at the end of the day, it's that relationship that grows and develops. And you said you have a son. So what did it mean to you personally to add that dynamic into the story for you and your son?
So, I think that for me, that he's like the most important thing in the world, right? And I might get emotional on this, but so when I was diagnosed with cancer, my dad was very upset, and he's in his 80s, and he's still here, luckily. But he would get very emotional, and I didn't quite understand like why he was getting so emotional. I was like, Dad, I got cancer. And he's like crying, and I'd never seen him like that before. And so, with my own son, I see now the importance of that. So it doesn't matter if I'm in my 50s and my dad's in his 80s. It's that you're my son dynamic. And so for me, that's what the story's about. I mean, the story is about a father-son relationship. And I think, I'll talk about this a little later, but I think that for me, making sure that relationship comes through. And by the way, I have a great relationship with my father. It's not anywhere like Jack and his son. But I really wanted to tug at that, because if you write a book about this great relationship with your father, it's boring, right? Nobody wants to read that, right? And so you have to bring in some drama.
Of course. You got to give the reader something,
And so I dedicated my book to my son, Hayden. So it's pretty cool.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. And how old is your son?
He's 17. In fact, he's at a baseball camp right now.
I was going to say, has he read your book?
Yes.
And what did he think?
He liked it. He was like, wow, great. I can't believe you wrote this, Dad.
That's awesome.
It's pretty cool. So,
that's great.
Yeah, it's very cool.
You must feel so proud, oh my gosh, my son loved my book. That's awesome.
Yeah, in fact, it's a lot of people are like, that's like the biggest testament you can get. Is that. So I don't know whether he liked it or not. You probably telling me that, but
just to make you feel better. Dad, it was great.
It was great. Yeah, and he's listening to the audiobook right now. I got to catch up.
We'll talk about the audiobook in a few minutes here. So let's talk a little bit about the world building process. We were saying earlier that you really focused on not info dumping to the readers. So walk us through how you created the world, but I guess weaved in information as the story progressed, rather than just saying, hey, here's the first, here's everything you need to know, and here's the story.
Yeah, so that's a good question. Whether I'm watching a movie or whether I'm reading a book, I am not a prologue person at all. And I really believe that you should just you should dump the audience right into
the
story. Like just get them, bang, you're literally dropped right in. And that's what I do at the beginning of this book. It's like the Father Bill, literally the first paragraph, like he's bleeding, he's dying, and you as the reader, you're like, whoa, this guy's like dying, and you don't get any information about why or what's going on. And so for me, the world building is really about dumping the reader into the story, get it going. And you set your settings, and you have to create all your scenes and figure out your locations. Drawing maps is always very helpful. The story takes place in the town of Stone. It's a fictional town of Stone Creek, Virginia, but it's loosely based on where my cabin is at, and there's landmarks around there that I've tied in. But I started drawing maps of like, okay, if the town is here, I need a hospital, I need the sheriff, I need a big chimney rock glacier, and here's the cabin, and it's 0.9 miles up the mountain. And so you start having to build your locations. But I'm not very big on exposition. If my wife and I are watching a movie and you get the "what about Bob" scene, I turn around, I'm like, that's exposition, and so I always try to make sure that I'm not telling the reader.
Right.
I'm showing the reader.
Right.
And a lot of times, and a lot of authors, a lot of new authors will info dump, and they've got these. And I've read works where they're good writers, but I'm like, cut the prologue, get rid of the prologue completely, because you don't need it. And I think a lot of times, even directors, they think their audience is dumb, and I don't like treating the audience that they're not dumb. They remember the things they read 10 pages earlier. You don't need to reiterate to them what it is, right? And you see that in the movies, right? It's like the end of the movie, there'll be a flashback to some scene at the beginning. It's like, you don't need to do that, because the reader is not dumb, the audience is not dumb. So I try not to assume that I try to make sure that the audience is intellectual. They're here for the story. And so I don't really I don't know where I do much info dumping at all. There's a scene where Ka-Ra sort of says who she is and why she's there, but it's like a very tiny paragraph. Right.
Yeah. You're not giving pages and pages of description.
No. And a lot of times you can get it through dialogue.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, people are walking around here looking at this right now going, what's this all about? Well, they can piece together very quickly that there's an interview going on. Right. So we don't need to turn to them and say, oh, yes, we're doing an interview. Like, they understand what's going on. So we're showing them the action. So I'm very big on just dropping somebody in and let's go.
Yeah.
Like Indiana Jones is perfect. Just the big Raiders of the Lost Ark. Like, you just jump in and he's already in an adventure.
Yeah.
You don't need any backstory about him at all.
I feel like your personality is perfect for this kind of genre. I feel like you're so you're just like, yes, I just want to be in the action to just put my character in the action. I feel like if someone were to read your book, they're like, yes, I can see Scott's mind and his excitement, and it's just like, yeah, let's just get it going. Like, we don't need all that. Let's just start it.
And even in the Maniac Dreams, in the short stories, that Em's read, they all start with you're just dropped right into the action. And so I want the reader to feel what's going on in the environment around them. And there's mystery to it too. I want them to piece together things as we go through the story, so that they feel like they're helping craft the story as it moves forward.
Yeah, no, that's so cool. And I feel like it's just something, it's adventurous for the reader, right? Because you're kind of like a detective. Like, okay, this person, this woman, what is she doing in the basement, you said? And then it's like, okay, how did she get here? Are we gonna figure it out? And then you want the reader, it's like the reader will want to continue reading it to say, okay, we need to understand what is happening here. So that's awesome. That's a good take.
And one thing that I do in each chapter, each dinkus break, right? It's called a dinkus break in between chapters. I'm very big on leaving a hook, because I want the reader to continue going on.
So you're the reason people say one more chapter.
Yeah. So it's sort of like, I really want to make sure that you don't want to put the book down. And so every time you end a chapter, that there's something where you're like, whoa, what just happened there? And now I need to know what happens next.
Yeah.
So
until the book, you end up finishing it and you're like, oh, well, now it's 3 a.m. and I don't It's unintentional, but at least I finished the book, right?
Yeah.
So what would you say was the most challenging aspect of bringing this world to life?
I think I think timeline
Mhm.
is the hardest thing to do. And when you're writing sci-fi or like action where there's the bad guy is doing stuff, or even fantasy, right? Like
Mhm.
you can't lose sight of what's happening with respect to the timeline. And so I had to really spend a lot of time because there's 48 characters in this book. So,
Wow.
you
It's a
know,
lot to keep track of.
there's a lot to keep track of, and trying to figure out where they're at in space and time. It's like, okay, this character's over at the hospital, but uh, in the next chapter, I need them here. Well, wait a minute, it's nighttime here. What were they doing for the 6 hours in between, right? And so you have to think about spatial timelines around where characters are at and how they're moving through the story. So I think for me, time management and where they're at in the story is the hardest part to craft in the world.
How do you manage it? Do you have like a spider web map on your wall that you're like putting
I
pins in, or?
there's I have a massive spreadsheet that I keep. So, and it literally tracks every detail and every character, and then sometimes you just have to sort of, it's sort of like a non-player character in a video game, like an NPC character.
Yeah.
Like they're just standing there waiting for you to do something with them. So sometimes you have to have characters that are doing that, right? Where they just disappear for a little bit,
Yeah.
and it doesn't matter what they're doing,
Right.
because it's not relevant to the story.
Right.
So
Makes sense.
yeah.
Now, just as a fun question here, what was your favorite part about bringing this world to life?
Ooh.
There's a lot of favorite parts.
Yeah, I think for me it's more about um, the 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 creating this idea that there's something bigger going on that we don't know about within the story. I always go back to cosmic wonder. I love this idea that there's something going on that's orchestrating, or there's karmic power that's happening, where like there's a scene where the protagonist Jack meets this woman, and he invites her in for coffee, and she's like, yeah, I'll come in. And he's rifling around the kitchen in the cabin that his dad had for coffee, and he finds tea. He's like, oh, all I've got is this specific tea brand, and she's like, oh my gosh, that's my favorite. And so it's sort of like, well, wait a minute, why did the dad have this woman's favorite tea in the cabin? And so I try to create these little
like eggs, like Easter eggs,
like a little Easter egg or echo of like there's something going on that we don't know about.
Yeah.
And so for me, that's the fun part, is trying to craft that, and then creating hooks. I just love, like, here's the hook of the end of the chapter, like what's next, and is that really capturing people's excitement
to get people to keep reading,
to keep them turning the page, right?
Was there anything in the book that you were planning on fulfilling it throughout, as you were outlining and planning the story? Was there anything that made it to the end that you didn't expect to make it to the end?
There was. I didn't actually think I was going to set up a trilogy with the book. So this is the first of a series.
So that was my follow-up question.
Yeah,
all right, cool.
Yeah. And so I didn't realize that until near the very end of how I was like, wow, you know what? I could take this on. I'm a very big believer in, if you're telling a story, you need to close the story for the reader. Like, you have to bring it to a close. There's a lot of writers who'll do cliffhanger endings. It's like, oh, wait till the next book for the. It's like, no. I want closure to the story that you were telling. Now you can set up a hint for a future book, and I think for me, I didn't realize that I was going to be doing a hint of that. And so I don't want to ruin anything, for any readers, but the way that hint was set up, I actually really like it. And I had to go back through the story to make sure that the domino pieces were there in order to have that hint there. And so I do have an epilogue in the story. So I'm not against epilogues. I'm against prologues, but the epilogue...
epilogues are fair game.
Epilogues are fair game. But I think of the epilogue as kind of an end credit sequence. So in my mind, it's being played to the song White Rabbit by Jefferson Airplane, if
Yeah.
you know that song.
Yeah.
So when you read the prologue, imagine White Rabbit's playing, but it would be like end credits. And then there's like this little hint right at the end. And it has to do with a cell phone. I don't want to ruin anything. But then I had to go back through the story and be like, okay,
does it make sense?
Does it fit? And if it didn't, then I had to be like, okay, I had to put the cell phone here. They took the SIM card out here. Now I got to have them put the SIM card back here. But wait a minute, the SIM card wasn't here.
Yes.
So I had to like go back through and make sure that this cell phone was properly put into the story.
So you could say, it's fair to say that there's plenty of Easter eggs throughout the story that leads us into book 2.
A lot of foreshadowing. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, for sure.
Right. So it's for sure going to be a trilogy.
Yes. Yeah. Book 2, I'm already about 50% done with the second book.
Are you writing it or are you drafting it?
I've already, no, the plot's already done. Like I know from beginning to end what's going to happen.
All right.
And so I'm like 50% filled in, writing it. So
all right. Is there like a tentative release date that we can?
I'm hoping 2026 for sure.
All right.
Yeah, I'm hoping 2026. So
all right.
It depends on my editor's schedule. So
that's fair.
If I can get the draft done in Q1, then she'll probably edit it in Q2, and then probably look at like Q3, Q4 next year. So
all right. So we'll be on the lookout for that. What is one takeaway that you hope readers leave with when they finish reading the book?
I think that for me, I will have wanted them to have a good time. But a takeaway with respect to the story itself is, check your relationship with your parents, at the end of the day. I think you hear a lot of times people say, oh, I wish I had said this to my parents before they passed on, or, what's stopping you from doing that now? So I've had those, even before my cancer, I had those discussions with my parents. It's like, hey, thank you for being there for me and doing all these things for me. And I get that not everybody has great relationships, but at some point we're going to lose our parents, and that's going to be a sad thing. And so make sure that you've said those things, because that's a very poignant moment in the story where I don't want to ruin too much, but Jack's words to his dad come back to haunt him later. And it's a very, very traumatic scene for him. And it seems innocuous at the beginning, and as a reader, you have no idea it's coming.
Yeah.
But his words come back to haunt him later, and it just I just beat him up. I'm like, it just gut wrenches his soul, and he's like bawling, and he's like, make it stop, and his words are being played back to him.
Yeah.
And so it's like take a moment to thank your parents for being there, because they're not going to be there forever. So
take the moment now and take advantage of it.
And that's a hard thing to do, right? I mean, it's a very hard thing to swallow your pride and swallow your ego and say thank you so much, but do it. It'll feel good.
Yeah. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
I love that. All right. Before we jump into the Maniac Dreams, I just want to talk about one last thing here.
Yes.
You said that Empyreax has an audiobook now.
Yes, I do.
So when did it get released?
So the audiobook just came out 2 weeks ago. It's on Audible right now, but it's actually distributed wide. So it's going to be on all audiobook platforms. It was narrated by Mike Regan. He's up in Canada. He's a professional voice actor. It sounds amazing.
I was going to say, how was it like when you heard like, okay, like this is going to be an audiobook? What was that like for you?
Yeah, it was very exciting. And then that was through Tim Heller Creative. So Tim Heller Creative was the production house, and they were fantastic to work with. And when they sent me the first chapter that he read, because they want to make sure that he's got everything right, I was just blown away. I mean, it's just absolutely blown away. So he's got a very deep, the voice of God type voice, and the action scenes, he really just brings them to life. And all the crazy characters, he does characterizations of them. So he really he did a great job with it. So yeah, that's available on Audible right now. So
all right. As an audiobook girly, I am so excited to hear that there's an audiobook for this book.
Yeah.
So
in fact, I was in the parking lot at Barnes & Noble here, and my friend texted me. She's listening to it right now.
Oh,
and she's like, his voice is so amazing. I was like, thank you.
Now, is it the voice that you envisioned for Jack, the main character?
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome. All right, let's move on and talk a little bit about the Maniac Dreams. So this is a collection of short stories. So walk us through what they're about. How did you come up with the concept of these short stories?
Yeah, so I when I started Empyreax, I wrote about 30,000 words in 2021. Like that's, I was cruising. I was very proud of it. And I thought, you know what, I need to join some writing classes because the craft of writing is something that I think a lot of authors don't really focus on. And it's sort of like what separates a professional athlete from an amateur athlete, right? Amateur athletes, we can all go, I can play baseball, we can pretend to play basketball, things like that. But when you get to that next level, that's the craft of writing and understanding how to structure sentences, dialogue tags, understanding story structure. There's a distinction between the craft of writing and just writing.
Yeah.
So when I got involved with this writing community that I'm a part of, I gave my opening chapter to a critique group that I was in, and they're awesome, but they absolutely shredded it, and they literally told me it was crap.
Isn't that like the author's rite of passage to get your story like shredded to bits?
I mean, it's like a punch to the gut, and you've got this baby, and I was so proud of it. And they were like, you're head hopping, you're omniscient, your dialogue tags are terrible, you're moving all over the place, you don't open it with a dream, right? I opened it with a dream. They're like, you don't open story. Like, and I was like, right? And you're like, you feel terrible. You absolutely feel crushed. But you thicken your skin and you say, all right, that sucks. It hurts. I mean, it literally stings, right? When you get this. And it was multiple people. But then you realize, oh, I need to learn from this. And you suddenly start interacting with your critique group. And now all of a sudden you're learning very quickly. So, all 30,000 words I wrote, like the core is still there, but it was completely obliterated and rewritten. And so now I feel like I've found my voice in terms of writing. And so the Maniac Dreams came about because of writing exercises that we were doing within the critique group and these courses. And so I'd write a lot of shorts. There'd be prompts where they're like, okay, go create a story based on this prompt. It's got to be 1,000 words. It can't be over X. And so I had all these short stories, and it was sort of like they're just sitting there. And I was kind of like, what, let me just get them out there. I'm self-published anyway. I can, the Maniac Dreams is on Kindle Unlimited. I'm not doing a print version of it. But yeah, that's the impetus for that. And then one of the stories, The Growl, was a submission to Cohesion Press. And the editor emailed me and said it made the short list, which is like the final cut before the final cut, but it didn't make it into the anthology, unfortunately. But he was like, hey, I love this story. Submit next year. So I'm going to do that. So that story's in here as well.
That's awesome. Yeah. That's great. Now, are these, how many short stories are in this?
Help me out, Em. I think there's 6 or 7. I think there's 7.
It was not meant to be a trick question. Guys.
Yeah. I think there's 6 or 7 stories in there. And one of them, it's not a horror story. It's kind of a cosmic wonder story. It's actually about baseball.
Very
and
cool.
It won first place in a writing competition. So
look at that.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. So
wow.
And I think there was like 110 entries in that competition. So to sort of be like, first place winner was very humbling.
That's awesome.
Very
Congratulations.
Yeah,
that's so cool.
Yeah, it's a very feel good story.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So are these stories connected in any way, like via theme or anything like that? Or are they meant to be just like standalone?
They're mostly standalone. I do put the first 3 chapters of Empyreax in the Maniac Dreams. So it's kind of like a hook, it's like, hey, here's the first 3 chapters of Empyreax. But really, the common theme across all of them is cosmic wonder. It's really about something bigger beyond all of us. And so I think each story ends with kind of a sort of a what's the right way to think about it? Sort of like a layout. Somebody's rolling out a carpet for you to go experience some cosmic wonder, right? And I like the readers to interpret the stories as well. So I don't do a lot of explaining with some of them. The first story, Meteor, is I want the reader to leave it thinking what actually just happened.
Right.
And I've had several people tell me different interpretations of it, very creative interpretations.
Very cool.
Yeah.
And that keeps in theme with you saying, like, I don't want to give too much away. I want the reader to come up with their own conclusions and their own interpretations, which is very cool. Very cool. So these short stories, what is something that you were talking a lot about it as prompting and things like that. So what is something that you get out of writing short stories that you maybe don't get or are able to achieve through a full-length novel?
I think the biggest thing for me is you're able to just tell a whole story. Like you get from beginning to end.
Yeah.
And you actually craft it and you complete it and you're done, right? And so I don't do a lot of tinkering. Like I kind of pick a point in time where I'm like, okay, this is it. It's done. It's finished. I'm not going to go mess with it anymore. And so I think for me, it's really about just getting it done, because that sense of completion then helps you fuel for getting to the point of done with your other books. You've probably heard this before, but they say whoever they are, if 1,000 people start writing a book, only 30 will ever finish. That's 3%.
Mm-hmm.
And of the 30, only 6 will ever publish.
Oh, wow.
So the whole idea is getting to the point of done. And so we always say in the writing community, the first draft just needs to exist. Yes. And so I think short stories help you complete that cycle of, okay, I'm done. Yes. And then that feeds into the bigger book.
Do you see yourself writing any more short stories?
Oh, absolutely.
All right.
I'm constantly.
You're constantly prompting.
Yeah. Oh, constantly. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So is there any takeaways that you hope readers leave with after finishing the short stories, or are these more so just like, just to enjoy? And
they're just like short, enjoyable little quick reads. I mean, they're not gonna like
change your life,
solve the world's problems or anything.
Yeah.
But I leave each of them. I want the reader to leave feeling a little bit like, what just happened, right? Like sort of like horror movies, make you feel like what just happened.
Like a kind of like what? Like whiplash
Yeah.
almost.
like the movie Fight Club. If you're the Chuck Palahniuk book, the movie Fight Club. When I saw that when it first came out, I'm dating myself a little bit, but when I first left the theater, like I walked out of the theater from Fight Club going, what did I just watch? Like that was mind blowing. And so that's the way I want readers to feel reading my stories.
Yes. All right. There you go. All right. Let's pull back a little bit and look at the bigger picture here. So you said you were currently working on book 2 for Empyreax. Is there anything outside of Empyreax that you're currently working on?
Oh, yeah.
A lot. Is there anything you can share?
Yes. So in Empyreax, there is a Japanese assassin character named Takashi.
Oh.
And I already have the entire outline of his spin-off book. So several readers have loved Takashi. He doesn't talk. He's very mysterious. And as my editor said, he walks his own path. And so I have an entire supernatural Chicago mob assassin story it's very much based on like supernatural elements, like monsters and ghosts and things like that. That is a backstory for Takashi.
Very cool.
And so then, not to give too much away, but the ending of that hints to Empyreax. And so there's like it's sort of like the pre-story, if you will. And then I'm also working on this is more a fun one, but if you're familiar with Giallo, the Giallo is like Italian splatter movies from the 70s and 80s.
No,
so it's
I've never heard of it.
Like Dario Argento and directors like that. You've probably heard of Argento. So back in the 70s and 80s, like the Italian splatter was kind of like a big thing. And so I have a novella trilogy that's based on sort of 80s slasher movies with like an Italian Giallo vibe to it. And so
very cool.
And it's based around like Italian cuisine. So
that sounds amazing.
I don't want to give too much away, but the 3 books are all titled like based on Italian cuisine. So they're fun, right? They're kind of, but I gave those outlines in a writing class, and everybody in the class is like, you need to write that because I'm going to read that. Like that would be easy. So I've got that. I've got the Empyreax series. And then the Takashi spinoff book, which I'm super excited about the Takashi spinoff book.
So if you're doing a spinoff for this character, does Poe Poe get a spinoff?
No,
No. All right.
no,
Not even a little
no,
novella. Not even a short story.
no.
Oh, sorry,
Yeah.
I tried.
But he comes back in book 2, and uh, let's just say he gets a friend. So yeah, yeah.
She's so
Yeah.
excited.
I'll say that the friend's name is Vixie. So yeah, it's gonna be another drone that befriends Poe.
All right.
So yeah,
that's Emma's gonna be looking forward to that. So.
Oh, I'm so excited about that. I mean, I was telling my accountability partner, I was like, oh my gosh, Vixie, like Poe and Vixie, it's going to be epic. And so yeah, I want the readers to have fun with Poe. So that's a little bit of a preview for the second book.
All right. Well, that's super exciting. A lot of things to look forward to down the pipeline. So that's awesome. All right, I have 2 more questions here for you. What is one word you'd use to describe your author journey so far?
Humbling. It's very humbling.
That's great.
So I think that especially honestly, whether you're traditional published or whether you're self-published, it's very hard to get your book out into the world.
Yeah.
It's extremely difficult to market and promote. And I think a lot of authors feel the fatigue of that. Like, even if you're traditionally published, you have to go do book signings and you have to go promote. And I see people who have signed 6-figure deals that are on social media promoting themselves. And so I think that getting your book out there doesn't mean it's just going to be a hit. And so I think you
have to do the work.
You have to do the work, right? And you have to promote yourself. And so I think humbling is kind of the right word. And I write for me. I don't, I write for telling stories. I don't write to make money. I always joke that if you want to be an author, don't quit your day job, right? Like you're not going to make money. If you're trying to write to make money, you're doing it for the wrong reason. So for me, it kind of goes back to when I was a kid. I've always loved telling stories. And so I'm at a point in my career where my kids are older, I've got my job and everything, but I'm at a point where I can write and tell good stories and have fun with it.
And you do it because you love it.
And I do it because I love it.
Yeah, and you want to share that passion and that joy and those stories with everyone else. And that's like the best way. That's like, I feel like you have like your heart is in the right place, and it's so beautiful to see that, because I'm sure it reflects in your books and through your words and the story. So that's fantastic.
Absolutely.
All right, last question here. If you can give one piece of advice to aspiring authors, what would you tell them?
Can I give 3?
Sure.
Yeah. So I think the first, I already said this earlier, but you have to focus on the craft of writing. And so I really recommend that you take courses on points of view. I mean, I said this earlier, but make sure you're taking courses on the actual craft of writing, because if you're not writing in a modern style for modern audiences, then your book's not going to resonate. The days of writing omniscient stories like Frank Herbert's Dune is very omniscient. That's not the modern style of writing. And so I think you have to really learn what's going on with books today. My second piece of advice is get an accountability partner.
Yes.
Without an accountability partner, you're never going to finish. And I think that's such an important part of the journey. And then the third piece of advice I have is, and I'll give you the link to this to put in the video. There's a video by a screenwriter named Corey Mandel where he talks about what is your story about. And I watch this video multiple times a year to remind myself to think about what is the story about? What is it actually about? It's not just, you're not just telling a world and characters. It's like, what is your central theme that ties through the entire story? I think that video is so powerful to watch, to just kind of make an author think about, well, what am I actually telling to the reader? And so for me, the first book is about father-son relationship. The second book, to give you a hint, is about fear of loss. And so you kind of get that central theme that grounds the entire story. And then everything you write goes back to that central theme. So Corey talks about, having that thread that goes through it. And so every single scene that you're writing, boom, goes to that theme. Otherwise, you're not telling a story.
That's a good way to stay accountable. It's like, okay, are you are you staying focused on the main points?
Exactly.
Like, is your story still relevant?
Yes.
Like, are these things relevant? So that's really good advice.
Yeah.
Yeah, we would love the link to that video. That would be awesome.
Yeah, very cool.
All right, Scott. Well, thank you so much for doing this for us today. It's been such a wonderful conversation. Now, for our viewers, where can they go to find you, to find your books, your social media, and things like that?
On social media, I'm at Books by Frost. So on all the socials. So I'm most active on Threads. I'm starting to get more active on Instagram. But yeah, Books by Frost. And then my website is www.scottfrost.com. So pretty easy. I've had that forever.
Awesome. Yeah. And we will include all of that in the description here. And for our viewers, thank you so much for tuning into this episode of Tales in Focus. If you want to find us on social media, we are TBR Trio on Instagram, Threads, TikTok, YouTube, all of that. And make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. It is free. It does help us. And it also keeps you in focus with our future author interviews and book events. And yeah, that's a wrap for us. We'll see you next time to find out what other tales TBR tells.
Love it.